Hello, this is your host Akhil Navluri, and welcome to another brand new episode of the TechoSpace podcast series. In this podcast episode, I'm super thrilled and honored to welcome one of our guests who's based out of Perth, Western Australia, and he's none other than Mr. Mike Fuller, the founder and the lead consultant of Kamunity Consulting. So, Mike, I'll take it over to you. So, why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners and audience?
Surely. Well, thank you so much for having me on this. This is a real thrill, and I've really enjoyed the process that we've gone through. And you'll understand why I care about process later on as we listen to some of the sort of like that have the conversation. But to introduce myself, you may not pick this up from the accent, but picture a very much younger version of me standing in the cold streets in Glasgow, asking my fellow Scots for money when all they want to do is go to the pub, right? I was one of those original chuggers on the street, charity muggers that we see so much around the place. Not so much recently, but we used to see a lot of. But importantly, it taught me a really keen lesson. That no matter what you want to achieve on any given day or on any given high street, you can find all the resources, all the passion, all the people, and even all the money to have real impact. And that's something I've carried through and with the rest of my life. And it's how I sort of feel. And I think it sort of sets us up for the conversation.
All right, that's an interesting here, Mike. So now, Mike, like at the stroke of this hour, 1:41 p.m., let's kick off with the podcast episode. All right. So, Mike, now starting with this, so Mike, how would you reflect your like 30 plus years of experience where you were transforming experiences, teams, organizations, and ecosystems across diverse industries, donning multiple hats of, quality assurance, innovation, and improvement specialist? Like, what went on with that?
Oh, goodness. Yeah, that's kind of my life story. 30 years of curiosity-led roller coaster rides, to be honest. Climbing different corporate ladders, navigating complex situations, finding simple ideas to complicated solutions, or sometimes simple solutions to complicated ideas. Getting deeply obsessed about how different industries work, their culture, their organization, their psychology. Building the wrong things, done that a lot. But also drinking, making great friends, and doing actually some amazing stuff that we honestly never thought would work. And then truly seeing it over and over and over again what a group of passionate, dedicated people can really achieve, can actually achieve when they get the bit between their teeth. And as you say, like really kind of sort of like I find now a very impressive kind of sort of range of industries. But at the time, it was just me and my curiosity. But over the 30 years, OEM mining, brewing, construction, fundraising, health, local government, cooperatives, NGOs, startup consultancy, and too many collaborations with random cool people to even mention. But as you said in the intro there, in the question, it's that QA improvement and innovation. I found these to be like the trivium, the kind of like the holy trinity, because the QA lens allows you to try and catch those silent failures early. Statistical process control. Probably Edward
Yeah.
Deming would be very proud of me for mentioning that. Then innovation lens turns all those issues and stuff that you find into fixes and habits or standard operating procedures, as we like to call them in the biz. And then the innovation lens really allows you to move the goalposts. It expands the Overton window of what's possible by getting people to be creative and come up with ideas and then try and work out how we're going to get there. So you mix those three lenses together is an incredibly powerful way of looking at any kind of situation, whether it be an organization, a group, or just a team of people. But what I would say is my other experience of 30 years of doing this is just a myriad of problems I've had to play with over the last 30 years. It's been phenomenal. And across multiple sectors and industries. It kind of has led me to a core realization. But maybe the problem may be technical, if you're in a technical place. It's psychological if you're in a human place. It could be structural if you're in a construction place. It could be cultural if you're in a knowledge place. It could be environmental. But really, the right solution always starts with good people talking. You know what I mean? It's something that we kind of do as humans. And what we kind of do with this quality improvement innovation, it's discussing the silent and sometimes not so silent failures, finding ways to improve our old habits and practices and thinking outside of the box. Not just as what's obvious, but what's possible. And then choosing from those kind of right features and those right experiences and deciding which one you want to aim for. It has been fun. It's a hell of a roller coaster. It's been fun. It's been frustrating. It's been fun. Did I say it's been frustrating and fun? I think I said that. But that's the 30 years I've really enjoyed. And I still feel like I'm learning. I still feel like I'm looking forward to possibly the next roller coaster that comes along to have a go. I would just like to point out, by the way, that hate roller coasters. I can't physically go on them, but I like the metaphor, shall we say.
The metaphor roller coaster. You know what, Mike? I really like the metaphor called the silent failures because I was also once upon a time a QA in my former company, and really, I used to knock it out for the for the developers, especially when I used to come up with bugs, and they used to hate that about the QA. In fact, there was one developer who used to tell, I mean, why don't you QAs just tell us directly? Why do you come up with sheets and documents to to create problems for
Yeah,
us?
yeah. Yeah, oh mate, I feel your pain. I feel your pain being judged as the form creation person, and the you must tick the box person. But it's scrappy. It's and we'll talk. And some of the other questions kind of sort of lead to this as well. But it's this idea that we're attempting to implement and put control over what is effectively an uncontrollable environment. We're pretending like we have control, and forms make us feel very secure. And as a QA person, one of the things that always sits in the back of your head is that when you walk into a room, nobody wants to talk to you because you're apparently here to tell them they're doing their job wrong. When I was always
Everything.
just curious about how they did it, why they did it, but sometimes,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah, totally. And this is the kicker if you're in QA, and you'll know this well, if it goes wrong, then where is the responsibility? The leader will always get out on the news and say, we have had a failure in our processes and our policies, which we are now currently reviewing. And then they go, come in here, tell us how to do this right. And suddenly you're really important, right up to the point where they don't want to talk to you again. It's frustrating and
It's
fun, and
absolutely
frustrating and
frustrating.
fun. Yeah.
It's fun yet it's frustrating. It's an achievement kind of a thing when you find out the bugs, but when you get when you face a lot of stick from the developers, you feel like you're almost in a corporate war, or let's say a tug of war going on.
Totally, totally. Never underestimate people's ability to not get the point of something that will actually help them if it does something or changes something that they enjoy doing or get value out of, even if it's in the company's best interest. I have to
Exactly.
do it this way. I once heard of a job, and I shouldn't tell stories, but I will. I once heard of a job where somebody went away on holiday and their boss had been trying to convince them to do a process better, more efficiently, because they were taking a week. And they went away on holiday, and the boss changed it while they were away, came back and said, your job now fits in Friday afternoon. Here is a selection of other value add tasks that our customers want, but you could do. Which one would you like to do? Possibly not very human centered, not very kind, and not very ethical, but the point was there. They could have done it better. But that's a conversation for later, I think.
Exactly. That actually completely makes sense. Now, I just wanted to understand this, Mike. Why do you always prefer the human-centric design and the strength-based practices over these traditional and niche approaches?
Yeah. I often get asked that. But in my mind, it's kind of like a choice. My mind is full of choices and pathways. That's all I ever see in my world. I'm like the kid in the sixth sense. I see choices and pathways instead of dead people. And having grown up with W. Edward Deming and Chiraco and Turan, these are the people that inspired me to get into quality systems management in the first place, compared to the likes of McKinsey or any of those. I pick on McKinsey because they're the ones that have been caught so many times with their fingers in the till. But you could mention any of them, like the tax leaking information that whichever the other one was. Do you remember what that company was? The Australian government. They were helping the Australian government with their tax advice for
Uh,
companies, and then they were
Not pretty
selling that
sure on
advice
that.
to they were selling that advice to international companies basically for profit, which is a little bit underhanded, a little bit dirty. Deming and Duran and Drucker would never have done that. So yeah, there's this kind of sort of idea that human-centered design and strength-based approach has got to be it's got to be a versus. It's a competition between these traditional niche approaches, which to me feel a little bit like profit-centered design and weakness-based exploitation. I mean, it's a kind of a cheap rhetorical trick, but my point is, what other way is there? We're human beings and we have strengths and weaknesses. I mean, if you're making something for me, you're pretending to make something that is to satisfy a deep need and want that you've identified through whatever process. Talk to me. Come and talk to me and ask me what I want. Let me play with it. Let me touch it. Let me feel it. Let me experience it and learn from my experiences. Don't tell me how I should live my life. And if I'm not a runner or anybody like that, please don't make me run an ultra marathon in order to be able to get the thing that I desperately need. That's not my strength. It's not where I excel. I excel in sitting down and talking to people, as you'll find out in this conversation. But I think perversely, the reason why this is so ingrained that it's all about the people and it's all about strengths is because I did my quality systems management degree at the Scottish College of Textiles. Not intended. I was doing a school exchange in America and I came back and found the welcome back and it said, don't go to Edinburgh where all your friends are, go to the Scottish borders to this textiles college. Now, I like Scottish rugby and that's the home of Scottish rugby, so I was happy. I got to see Gregor
Okay.
Townsend up close playing rugby. But they were full of designers and creatives, and human-centered design, strengths-based, is just what designers do. Fashion designers, textile designers. And so, that really kind of sort of just got drilled into me, and I've done it ever since. But and I find this really interesting. And I'm not saying that I'm clever or anything, but I have watched over the last 30 years the management frameworks catching up to that idea that those designers knew instinctively. From ISO 9000, very prescriptive, very procedural, very policy, to human-centered design, teal, distributed governance models, and a greater focus than ever on customer journeys. But it's all traceable back to those OJ thinkers, those Demings, those Duckers, Durans, plus passionate designers. They're all about capturing and sharing insights, turning improvements into good practice or soft, experimenting and innovating to find what moves the needle about what's possible. I love those people. I love those conversations. That's so amazing. And so human-centered design and strength-based approach, they work. And they work at scales that people don't think is possible, seemingly impossible situations. Because quite frankly, if you still think that an organization needs to be structured the way it's always been structured, in this factory model of hierarchies and functions and departments, we know the problem. Silos, bad communication, bad coordination. That's always been the case. That hasn't changed in 30 years. But we think this is the only way. Do me a favor, go and Google Hire, the Hire story. They started as a quality assurance-led white goods manufacturing, and they destroyed 70% of their products because they didn't work properly. That started them on a journey to human-centered, and they are incredible. I digress, which I will do. Ultimately, I think, focusing on human beings and strengths-based is the only way that you should do things. And quite frankly, when you get the right people, the right humans, and the right strengths in a room, you should never underestimate what that group is going to achieve.
Indeed, indeed. That completely serves a point here. But I'm pretty curious to ask you this, Mike. You just told me that you came from Scottish College of Textiles. So coming from the background of from the textile thing all the way to tech, how was that journey like? I mean, how was that ride?
Well, I definitely wasn't this fashionable when I started at the Scottish College of Textiles. I'll tell you that for nothing. Look, I'm the kind of sort of person that just absorbs information. I try to sort of understand the whys. There's this really fabulous concept in the Japanese language, which I always wish I could remember, which I was introduced to because of things like the Toyota production model and things like Genbei, Gosi, and Kaizen, quick good change. But it basically talks about the surface of the situation and then the reality underneath. And it's like a Marvel movie, right? It's like you can go and watch a Marvel movie and it's whiz bang and it's fabulous and it's fancy and it's flash and you get some kind of entertainment nourishment out of it. But the people that made that are obsessive. Like you could spend your entire day finding all of the Easter eggs and internal references. I love the fact that they put things like posters from other movies that are in the universe in the background. Like that's world building. That's world building. And I kind of sort of think that's what human-centered design, strengths-based approaches, my experience has led to, is the fact that it's all about world building, really. And another world is just as possible as the one we have. So
Totally, totally. So did you find any similarities with respect to the, I mean, with your tenure in the textile industry to that of the tech industry now? Or did you find differences?
yeah, no, they're all the same. They're all the same. I mean, okay, so in QA we talk about widgets. So that's our kind of like our default language. And a widget can be anything. It doesn't matter what the widget is. And again, you go back to Drucker, and he sort of talks about what your job as a business is to identify customers, not create customers. That's a whole different dark pattern, which we can talk about later if you like. But it's about identifying needs. You need water, I'll give you fresh water. You need a roof, I'll get you a roof. It was that sort of thing. So textiles, technology, retail, electricity production, it doesn't really matter. You've got a bunch of inputs, which your factory or whatever it is designed to coordinate and combine and adjust and catalyze and do all of those sorts of things in order to create an output that is the desired need of a customer that makes them happy and satisfied and making them want to come back again without, destroying the planet, the environment, people, that's the goal. According to Drucker. McKinsey have slightly different kind of sort of opinions in some of those big four. Let's not mention fentanyl, but yeah, so it doesn't matter. Industry is industry, change is change, people are people. It's always about groups of passionate people working together on a collective outcome. Doesn't matter what it is.
Absolutely. That completely, explains the point. Now, I just wanted to understand, Mike, why do you think it is important to, facilitate the workshops and leading transformations all the way?
I think, um, most decisions and most beliefs we have are driven by kind of sort of like undiscovered motivations and things like that. I like to talk. I like to question. I like to have conversations. I like to take quick action. I like to get involved. I like to muck in. I like to roll my sleeves up. That comes from kind of probably my Scottish childhood of playing in forests and building tree houses and all that kind of stuff. Things I think I'm not sure the kids do today anymore, which is a real shame. But facilitating workshops is like that. It's a bit like play to me. And as far as I'm concerned, you shouldn't really do it any other way. I think about it in terms of like workshops are the heart of transformation. It's not a post-it note party. I mean, as long as, it's not innovation theatre. They're live system diagnostics. Like if you were a software engineer, how great would it be able to just crawl all over the code, like physically get in amongst the code, not have to be separated from our screen and existence. You're in there. Because transformation isn't a memo, it's not an email, it's a campfire, it's a discussion. And workshops do all sorts of like amazing things if they're run right. They surface those hidden strengths. Who knew that Barbara was incredibly good at public speaking off the cuff? Because she always seems so quiet, but why? She can pull it together when she needs to. But it also does the other thing of flipping the lights on, so the whole room can rearrange the furniture together. So you don't coming in and tripping over something that somebody's put there and you don't know why it's there. It services hidden talents. It dissolves turf wars, which are usually based on misunderstandings and communication errors, rather than sort of, I really do truly hate you. Nobody hates anybody. They just think that they're doing something that's impacting them and they maybe don't know about it. So it helps dissolve those turf wars as you create that whole room ownership, if done right, is my caveat on all of these sorts of things. Because we are all in this together until it's done. If you're in a workshop, you're in it till it's done. It's blitz mentality, right? At the RAC, and I don't recommend you do this, but at the RAC, I say I do recommend you do this. At the RAC, we did 16 5-day sprints, one a week for 16 weeks. As a coordination and a facilitation, that is like running ultra marathons one a day for 16 weeks. I do not recommend it. But the big uplifting culture and ideas that happened because so many people were having conversations with people about ideas and frustrations that they'd never talked to because they were on a different floor or in a different pod, and politics ensues,
Right.
And if the listeners and watchers want to experience that for themselves, my favorite exercise is using the unspoken value chain or unspoken and spoken value chain. You will get so many instant aha moments, as in, oh, that's why my inbox is full of rubbish, and some embarrassment moments where they're like, oh my god, that's why I'm filling up your inbox. No, I'm terribly sorry about that. But again, you do not get that in Teams with emojis. You only get that in human contact because that's how we've done it for thousands of years. That's what our brains are used to. Don't put a screen in the way. So I mean, long story short, which is something I'll probably say a lot of, it's about getting the right people in the right room and staying there until it's done. It is so much more satisfying than kicking the can down the road as we do in all these sort of regular meetings where you meet, you discuss, and then poor Brian has to go and wordsmith it and write it up 2 weeks. You'll be lucky if you get it back in 2 weeks. But if you're in a workshop and you're there for 5 days, well, then you get in, you get it done, and you get on with the rest of your day. You don't make the update the important thing, you make the impact the important thing. Don't spend half an hour preparing to give me an update, spend half an hour actually impacting something. And I believe workshops do that. But our kind of normal course of doing things allows us just to kick the can down the road for another 6 months. And we never really get there. But we feel so busy. So busy.
Yep. So since you just just talking a detailed thing about workshops and the 5-day workshop period that happens. Now, does community consulting post the workshop? Does it I mean onboard different people to different projects? Does that process go on, or is it like with respect to the business or clients that you're working with?
Community consulting is, I guess, at its heart at the moment, kind of just like a standard consulting. I know that's a terrible thing for me to say. No, sorry. Let me rephrase that. We are incredibly special and unique in the entire world. No, what we do is we do the kind of sort of classic thing of we talk to our customers, we identify what their experience, their lived experience, their living experience, what the challenges are, what they need to get. It's very classically the 4D. If you want to do the double diamond, it's discovery. And everything starts with discovery, and discovery is a conversation. And you go from discovery into sort of like design and deliver, and all that, define and deliver and design. I get them wrong now. There's 163 different models going in my head. That was a line I used to have in a
Oh
workshop. I was
my.
like, there are literally I've got a book at home, 163 different ways that we can solve problems coming from all sorts of industry. But today we're going to create one that works for us. That's a workshop line, because that's what it's about. I am a post modern structuralist, which basically means all models are wrong, some elements are useful. So I pick and mix to find the right approaches for the right people. Oh, well, I try to anyway. Doesn't always work.
That's brilliant to know, Mike. Now, Mike, if we will talk about community consulting in deep, so can you just give me an insight about your company, Community Consulting? About the types of technologies that are used and the type of approaches that it follows, the type of strategies. And having said that, like which industry or domain does your do your clients or business fits into, or they belong to?
Cool. Yeah. Now the community pitch bit. Community. Yeah. Um, I mean, this has been around for a while, but legally, probably 10, 15 years, I think. But I've always considered what I do to be consultant. Always. Because of exactly that QA thing that we talked about. We've always been slightly the outsiders. Loved and then hated, and then loved and then hated. And in fact, I even once wrote really long letters to the Big Four, like McKinsey, and I begging to join them. But luckily for me, it didn't work out, and I ended up in brewing instead. Scottish and Newcastle Brewing. The best 5 years I can barely remember. Absolutely fantastic. But then since then, every 3 to 5 years, I've jumped. Italian new industries, usually at a lower management level, so I could work my way up because it allowed me to sneakily do really cool projects, as well as make a lot of noise and ask a lot of questions. So I guess community was kind of born out of that spotting of that repeat pattern of pain. So silos, hero leaders, underutilized community capital, organizations craving connection, stakeholder engagement, the ecosystems they wanted to build and enable, but they lacked the scaffolding and the language. And QA allowed me to sort of like pick from all those different areas and try and build the scaffolding and try and help them craft their own language so they could solve their own problem. So for me,
Yep.
community has been a kind of like a lifelong journey of R&D, which is rip off and duplicate, to rematch and to repackage, to find the best way to get the right people in the room, to think about the right stuff and come up with good solutions. But basically, I guess to answer your question properly, 3 key insights you probably need to know. Oh, shit, I need 4. Anyway, we love clients with a strong social purpose or instinct. Social entrepreneurs, NGOs, local governments, community groups, basically anybody that wants better experiences and better outcomes for their community. And to your point, and to what I said before, we pick and mix from the best strategies, the best tech, the best tools, the best people that we found and they found, and we kind of discover and kind of define and design our way through it, the challenge. Because it's really always about trying to get to that impact soon, the impact they need now, but always with an eye on what's next, and always with an eye on what's possible, and always in a human-centered design way that strengthens everybody's capability through active learning, I believe is the term, for the next round of focused action, but because there will be another round. So community consulting, as the name might suggest, is kind of a community approach at its heart.
Community
You know?
approach. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know your lived and living experience way better than I do, right? You know what you've tried, you know what works, and you know what you want. We know a bunch of tools, we know a bunch of tech, we know a bunch of strategies, we know a bunch of really cool people. So why don't we pool our resources and see if we can find a really cool solution that fits, not fatigues. It's a modest goal, but that's what we try to do with everybody that we kind of sort of work with.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I'm just pretty curious to know, like, what are the types of technologies, let's say back-end technologies or front-end technologies that you have used in your organization, Mike?
Oh, no. I can't really think of anything that I haven't used. I mean, most of the organizations we go into most of the organizations go into Microsoft shops. So everything's Microsoft. So I played around in Microsoft and most of the time I once taught myself how to do access databases, if that's even still a thing. I don't know if that's even still a thing. But I've certainly found, and this comes down to the good people and the passionate people. I could spend all day long learning how to do Power BI and Power Automate and set up Fabric or Trello or any of the other Miros or any of those kind of sort of things. But I can tell you this, there's somebody out there that knows it way better than me and can run the system like they're like a virtuoso pianist or something.
Happens, yeah.
I once saw a guy over there. Okay, I once saw a guy. He was in his 50s or 60s, and this the computer monitor that he was using was still that green cursor. You remember the green cursor before, Microsoft introduced kind of like the object-oriented graphics and email
Hmm.
double-click icons and drag and drop and all that kind of stuff. It was all cursors. This guy would honestly tell me that he could not use technology while he was not looking at the computer and entering data into this computer system. He was entering data in screens that hadn't even loaded yet
Oh
because he
my,
knew this system
that's
so
tedious.
well. Yeah, 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 yeah. And he's sitting there going, I can't use computers. No, 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 I don't get them. All this drag and drop stuff, it doesn't make any sense to me while he's putting in production orders for
Seriously.
like multi-million dollar businesses or builds like bill of materials and stuff like that. And he's not even looking as he's doing this, telling me he can't use computers. It's that mindset, it's that mindset. But he was a virtuoso genius. So I am completely tool tech systems agnostic. I've played with a lot of them. I haven't played with so many because there's so many out there. And now with the explosion of AI, it's just getting insane. But what an opportunity. There's some really cool stuff coming. Really cool stuff.
Indeed. Now, if I just wanted to know, like, what type of, clients or business does your, I mean, let's say, what is the domain that your client or business, pertains to? Is it from the mining side? Is it from the fintech side? Or is it from the legal side? Like, I mean, where do they, come from?
The simple answer is I don't really care. And that's not because I'm kind of like, oh, just give me the money. All I want is your money. I don't really care where you come from. I care what your intent is, and I care what your taste is. So if your intent is to come to me and say, hey, Mike, we want to strip out 50% of the staff and make this really efficient and make it really cost effective, my immediate question will be why and what are you doing with those staff? Like there's a choice that you're making as a leader. And I understand that you have to make some tough decisions in commercially sort of like challenging environments. And I've worked in commercially challenging environments. So it always comes back to that intent and then the taste, because your intent will inform what we do and how we do it. And the taste will inform what you select, what comes out the other end. And this sounds a little spicy, but I've been in situations where I have done the work and I have
Mhm.
not been happy with the experience that I've delivered or the outcomes that were finally agreed upon. Which is why if you go to my website, communityconsulting.com, you'll find the very first thing on there is better experiences and better outcomes. And that's the thing. So I believe within a mining company, yes, there are definitely people that are in there. I know we need resources. I'm a little bit aggrieved with some of the techniques that they use. But if there's good people in there, they do a lot of environmental reconstruction and do a lot of really good stuff. So possibly. But really, I mean, I prefer the kind of sort of the pure breeds. That sounds like horses or something. But like the pure breed local government, NGOs, social entrepreneur, community groups
Mhm.
that want to do something. But the people that are underserved, that McKinsey wouldn't touch, because how do you make profit out of people? Well, I mean, obviously they know how to do that, but they don't think that our social sector is worth playing in at the moment. But they're coming, and that worries me. That worries me.
Absolutely. Now, in your experience, I mean, I'm pretty sure, like, suppose if anyone approaches you and they say, Mike, we are a retail company, or let's say we are a textile company. So what is that type of, technology, front end technology or back end technology would you reckon that, we can start up with? So what would you say to them?
Oh, look, I always go. I created this a long time ago. It goes pants, project, plans. Well, let me get this right. I haven't said this for a long time. Uh, augmented, automated AI. That. So, the tools and the stuff don't matter. It's that journey of we're flying by the seat of our pants here. We're barely holding on. That's kind of like a startup environment or where some seismic sort of like changes happen in your context or your competitive landscape or something. But it can be just organizations, right? I've seen plenty of organizations that have been around for long enough and they're literally still in stage one for most of their operation. They might have turned some stuff into projects that they repeat by building a house. They might have got quite good at that as an analogy. The better organizations have got into the process and they start to see things as networks of flows of information and flows of activity. You start to get into the ISO standards and the Lean and the Sigma kind of sort of world here, and you get to sort of process. And then you move into what you're talking about, which is the technology, which is augmenting it. So that could be as simple as grabbing a calculator or as slightly more sophisticated as putting together an Excel spreadsheet with a few micros or whatever those things are called to make it work. So you get augmented, um, automated. Obviously, we're down talking Power BI, but equally there's Zapier and 8N8, which is now you can integrate agents into your workflows and things like that. You can build those in Maker and all those sorts of like platform background builders, and that leads you into the AI. And that's that again, agnostic to the industry that you're in. The choices that you make will depend on what your context is, what your budget is, what your strategy is, what your values are, and all of those, what your current technical legacy and debt is. But again, hinting at future conversations here, um, that's kind of an old paradigm in the sense that you have to go to the shops in order to buy what's already on the shelf.
Yeah.
Trello might be a good solution for you, but so might a version that's got half the stuff that Trello has, and none of the lock-ins and none of the problems that Trello brings, which is, I think, the place that we're going to now. So tools agnostic, everything is agnostic. It is about practically what works. Otherwise, you're just shilling for Microsoft, right? Oh, I
Yeah.
hear you. I've listened to you very actively. You know what my solution is? Microsoft. I listened to somebody else very carefully. I took a lot of notes, a lot of details. Guess what your solution is? Microsoft. It's not true. It's never been true, but marketing is very powerful and convenience is very powerful, which is why we're all on Microsoft. I'm on Microsoft. We're on Teams. Love them. Don't get me wrong. Sorry, ranting again.
All right. All right. Now, heading on to your tenure, Mike. So, Mike, would you like to, share with me and our listeners your experience of being the founder and the lead consultant of your company, Kamunity Consulting?
Yes, I would. I'd very much like to, but I feel like I'm about to go on another massive rant. It's still a roller coaster. It's still a roller coaster, man. It's still a roller coaster, and I still see the same pains. Silos, hero leaders, underused community capital. I see it everywhere. Again, sixth sense kid me. And I feel kind of a bit like and I'm 48. Thank you for saying I don't look it. But I feel like I've been on the front line of a war of waste and problems for over 30 years. I'm fucking tired. Because we're just repeating the same failed strategies with different names. ISO 9000, Lean, Sigma, Agile at Scale. We're all trying to do the same sort of thing. And a lot of people are making a lot of money off selling these books and these training programs and things. But all we're doing is saving another 10% by reducing waste or developing another plan that mostly will never happen. Doing the same thing again next year. And as I say, the makers of the books and the training courses, they're definitely profiteering. They're making a lot of money. And somebody's getting promotions by saying, hey, everybody, we should introduce Agile at Scale. Look at me, isn't this a great idea? I've got all this thing. Have I human-centered it? Have I based it on strength? Maybe, if you're lucky, they have. But I hear so many stories of Monday morning leaders that have just read another book or read an article on Medium over the weekend, and they're like, hey, we should do human-centered stuff. We should do innovation stuff. Not realizing, as one of my friends likes to say, words have meaning. Innovation is a word and it has a meaning, it has a history, and it has a purpose. And you can't just band it around and pretend what you're doing is innovation, and it's not. So this is a really long way to keep going into saying, doing full time at Community, I've been jumping around more companies, and I still see the same thing. We have this, I don't know, this weird fragmented kind of like social capital, siloed tools and talent, fatigue. And again, it feels slightly rigged. And to use the word of the year is slowly end-shitifying. So it's the gradual and occasionally explosive decline of service and quality product quality. And so to me, it feels like to some of the people that I talk to, the people are really desperate to get some sense of agency. They want to solve problems. They want to do better, but they don't want to swap their skills without having to swap their souls. And I know that sounds a bit hyperbole, a bit dramatic, but I'm a consultant. I don't work. I don't go into work on a Monday morning. I watch people getting on trains on a Monday morning. And that breaks my heart
Okay.
sometimes. Oh my God, like the automatons stand there on the phone. They don't look happy. They don't look like they're about to go and do something fun, but it's convenient. And this is the trick. It's convenient. The career pathway is convenient. It's not easy. I'm not saying that. You have to work your butt off in order to stay where you are and get ahead. But it's standard and it's traditional and we understand. And it is also slowly and shitifying. That is also true. Two things can be true at the same time. So being a founder and a lead consultant is hard. It's really hard because you're off the beaten track. and it's challenging, but it's also stimulating and it's also exciting. I'm a believer in the growth mindset. Nothing is an obstacle; it's an opportunity. That's what strategy was all about. The word strategy comes from the Greek. It's a Greek word for the commander that surveys the landscape of the environment the
Okay.
battle is about to be fought on, and goes, "There's a hill there. Do we take the hill, go round the hill, go under the hill, ignore the hill?" That's what strategy is, and that should be reflected and it should be constant. But that's
Oh,
not how we do it. Yeah, it's not how we do it. So it's it's inconvenient at the moment to be a founder, a solo founder, and a solo lead. But I don't think I'm that because I have a community of people that I talk to and can bring into any project from all sorts of walks of life and all sorts of domains. Some really kooky and interesting and weird people that are obsessed about one thing for most of their life. And now we can just sort of like swap skills and share. We can swap skills, not souls. But it's changing. So that whole inconvenience, changing. And the solo entrepreneurs and some of the people that I'm talking to really upping their impact and their capability. And they're using AI to do it. Not AI as the answer, not AI as the Lord and Master, not AI as our new overlords, but to make what they do more convenient to them. And not waiting for Trello to release the new feature or Miro to make an upgrade or somebody else to do the thing. But they are literally vibe coding and using 8M8 or Zapier or whatever to connect the tools and the tech and the people and to build the suite of office functions and advisors they need. It's nuts. This is almost embarrassing to say. I've got a virtual community assistance team made up of 30 global leaders in their field, from everything from social impact through to finance. I've even got a world advisory board that are there to provide me with what the opposition would say and how they would see what we're doing and try and stop it. It's really lovely paranoia, that kind of sort of like that tin hat, foil wearing kind of sort of environment. But you would not believe the kind of sort of conversations that we have, and it really sparks some interesting ideas. Now, it's a bit bonkers, and I'm playing and I'm experimenting, and it doesn't always work, but it's better than using the AI just for gibbly images and memes and slop. Because if we're using it for gibbly images and memes and slop, you can guarantee that somebody else is thinking what I'm currently thinking, and they may not have my best interest in heart or yours. So do we use the same tools to reimagine the world to build a better experience and outcome?
no.
To make it more convenient for us to be solo entrepreneurs and solo people to do this sort of stuff, to get off the front line and to start co-designing the game and the tools and the options that work for us, that's convenient for us. I mean, this is the bit that I think is just so obvious. Let's do that because we used to do it as kids. I love this. Okay, get a bunch of 5-year-olds together. I saw this outside the library the other day in town. The Cultural Arts Centre, a whole bunch of kids. They were literally making up and playing games together as they were going on the fly. They were doing the whole, hey, let's build a fort and play pirates. We can do that now, but instead of building forts and playing pirates, we could build an ultra simple platform that connects peer support groups, or social entrepreneurs, or clients, or support workers, or whomever it is that you want to connect and support and elevate. You can do that. And you can have a working prototype and a kind of sort of their business model in hours and days, not months and years, especially when you're not waiting on Brian to type up all the notes and do the socializing after the meeting where everything will be discussed. Because he's probably had his ear chewed off by somebody and told, well, that's what they said, but this is what you do, Brian. So, I'm not special, but I've been vibe coding and vibe planning solo and with this virtual community team, and it's nuts. Like there are days, every day I do something or I see something or read something where I'm like, this doesn't feel like it should be possible. But the pathways that my brain sees is like, wow, this could really be important, really be important.
Agreed, agreed. That sums up the point, Mike. Now, Mike, I just got it first time, or let's say I've heard it first time. Here that strategy is a Greek word. Seriously, I
Sure,
mean, it never occurred to me that it was a Greek word because it's very obvious. Sometimes the Greek names are pretty obvious that okay, that's Greek, but strategy never,
sure it is. I'm
rung a
sure it is.
bell with me.
All of the people in the comments are going to be like, no, it's bloody Latin. It doesn't bloody mean that. It means shepherd or something like that. So I'm prepared for flowback, but for the purposes of my argument, that's what it means. And it's definitely Greek.
That's an interesting trivia. That's perfect. It's good to know. Probably now I'm going to inbuilt in my mind that okay, I'm just
Yeah, yeah,
gonna
yeah.
say
Yeah,
that.
yeah. And totally. I mean, this is the thing, right? So you go back and look at strategic practice. Now, you can pick whoever you want. You can go with Drucker, or you can go with some of the classics. Let's go with Machiavelli, right? Machiavelli, the Prince. If you haven't read Machiavelli, the Prince, go and read Machiavelli, the Prince. 15th century. It was it was a CD basically to all the princes in Italy, because he was unemployed and he needed a job. And his was basically, I've been advising the Merovingians or whomever it was. They became pope and stuff, like really powerful family. And he said, look, this is all the lessons that I've learned. And from him, we get things like, is it better to be feared or is it better to be loved as a leader? And, scapegoating, that's one of his. Like one of the examples was, instead of you as the leader making an unpopular decision, get somebody else to make that unpopular decision. And then when everybody hates them, as the leader, step out, cut that guy's head off. Because everybody will be satisfied. Because, oh, that guy's dead now, and the leader cut his head off. What a great leader it is. But the leader was the one that did it. These are rules that he set down on how to do leadership. Edward Bernays, the inventor of public relations. Let's not go there. He used his uncle's Freud's kind of like knowledge to create freedom flares or cigarettes for women. He did all sorts of wonderful things.
Oh mine, yeah. That
Yeah,
that
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, yeah.
Totally. I mean, it's these are people who are thinkers, but you've got equally as many people on the other side, like Drucker and Duran and Deming. These were all people that said, after the Second World War, we're not going to go back to the industrial situation that was pre the First World War. We're going to build a better industrial system that actually takes account for the workers. Let's stop putting children into threshing machines. Wouldn't that be nice? Let's, have educated, let's have support, let's have objectives that are measurable and performance that can be tracked and support the development of the people, not just hit them with a stick or fire them if they don't do what they're told. And again, this is where I get all ranty, but there is a point to this. We built this world. We made choices in this world, and we built a
Exactly.
world increasingly concentrated in convenient but fragile corporate supply chains. But at the same time, we've created a world of fragmented social connection and capital. We used to be communities. We are not. We are consumers. And we're just tired of it, I think. I think a lot of people are tired of it. This is what the customers and people I work with, they're kind of tired of it. They want to do something different. They want to connect. They want to swap skills. They want to swap knowledge. They want to swap experiences. They want to do insights and give each other kudos, like high fives and cash. But they don't want to surrender their sanity or their equity or their agency to do it. And I
Yeah.
think we're in a position where that might be possible. Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, as we're just, going inside the conversation, I mean, we're just coming up with a lot of trivia. I mean, it's a trivia for me. For you, it's, it's obvious and you just, read about it. For me, it's a trivia, new things,
Pop, pop
uncovering a
cultural
lot of things.
reference. You'll learn this. I love a good pop cultural reference. I love pop culture.
Brilliant, brilliant. That they're good. I mean, they're a good set of references. But now, Mike, if I would just like to, ask and understand this particularly, like, what is your take on, early stage startups, innovation, consulting, and social innovation? Like, how do you, put these three together?
I love them. Social entrepreneurs, innovators, lower stage startup, fabulous, fabulous, real life agile problem detectors. Always on, always looking, again, like the kid from the Sixth Sense, except they see problems and tensions and issues and the possibilities. They're always sparking possibility. These are the creative people, the pattern thinkers, the pattern spotters. But social innovators are the key, because these people are smart and they're able to analyze situations. They're able to sort of like break them down. They're able to look for options. But you can't make a decision based on rationality. And there's also the lovely brain science, and I could go into it, but it's more pop cultural trivia. But ultimately, you cannot make a rational decision without an emotional input. If you don't care about which potato you have in your dinner, they're all potatoes. They've all got pros and cons, but pros and cons have emotional weight. So if you don't have an emotional element, a connection to it, you're never going to make the right decision. You're just going to make a decision and probably post-rationalize it why it was the best one. So the entrepreneurs, the innovators, the inventors, absolutely key. But the social people, the social sort of entrepreneurs are the people, because they're the people that will provide the rocket fuel. And together, both of those groups will outlearn, outmaneuver, and outconnect incumbents. It's why guerrilla warfare is so powerful against massive armies. Try invading Afghanistan and tell me that small motivated people that are passionate and technically savvy can't defend something or can't do something. I think it's called the graveyard of empires, Afghanistan. Everybody's
Hmm.
tried. The British, we tried 3 times. Failed every single time. Never mind. And so yes, love these people. I'm a wordy person, as you know. So I have an issue with the word. because there's kind of this sense that you're supposed to fit the definition, one of those definitions, to be one of those people. But they're just fancy terms for what people have always done, right? Talking about things that annoy us, asking and speculating as to why it is that way, and then, if you can, doing something about it. You don't need to be a social entrepreneur to see a local park bench that looks a bit shitty and to grab a pot of the right paint, because you can research what's the right durable paint, and a couple of mates and go and spruce it up. You don't need a title for that, because if you do, then I need to go and tell my 81-year-old mum, who does that sort of thing, that she's a social entrepreneur. She'll be thrilled. Don't get me wrong, she'll be delighted. She'll understand what I'm talking about, but she'll be polite and she'll be like, "Oh, that's great. Oh, I do like to be a social entrepreneur. I like social." But again, Drucker, back in the 1560s, this is finding real customers, finding real needs, not the dark hustle, which is making and creating and exploiting needs. I need McDonald's. I want nutritionist food, but I buy McDonald's because it's bloody convenient. But I don't make anything off it. They make an absolute shit ton. So it's like this kind of sort of like weird sort of situation. So we as human beings are always trying to find solutions to stuff. That's what we do. We're always asking, why did this thing happen? That's what our brains are designed to do. So let's bring those people. Let's look at real needs, real issues that affect us all, and let's focus on those. Because, and again, I have a lot of opinions, but my opinion, my spicy take, is that trying to innovate without the community, without asking the people you're trying to serve, without the community, is expensive and potentially damaging. Guess what? It's really easy to launch something that has negative side effects. When we first discovered uranium, Marie Curie and all the rest of it, yes, she was a scientist. She also had a factory producing uranium type products, or she had friends that had uranium factories. They put it in bread, for God's sake. But like, hey, this uranium stuff, should we put that in bread and milk? Yeah, let's do that. That's a great idea. Didn't ask anybody, didn't do the science. They just put it in
Sorry,
food.
what? Bread in
Yeah,
uranium? That's pretty bizarre. I mean,
yeah. Well, it's the atomic age. These apparently this uranium that made things glow had mystical magical powers, and it could solve everything from erectile dysfunction to stomach upsets to whatever. So they put it in everything. Google that stuff.
whoa.
Yeah. You think chlorinated chicken coming from America is a threat? Just have a look at what's in your food science stuff that you buy. Some of the stuff in the supermarket ain't food; it's chemistry. Okay, so to always double down on that point, there's a very wise thing that my grandma once said, is that never go into the center of the supermarket, only go around the outside. Because around the outside is fresh bread, fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, fresh bread, milks, dairies, all those kind of meats and everything. On the inside, it's processed, it's salt laden, it's chemically preserved. It's the worst possible quality of tomatoes that they put into a can, but they've spruced it up with flavorings and things to trick your senses into the fact that you're eating something useful and something good. But she's like,
Something different,
if your
yeah.
loaf of bread sits on your counter and does not go moldy within 4 days, it's not technically bread. It's probably something else. So don't
Yeah,
eat it.
yeah.
Don't eat it, because you are what you eat. You are what you eat in the same way that you are the same as the average people that you hang around with. So you become the average of the people you hang around with. So you are what you eat, you are who you meet, and you are the media you consume. We live in bubbles, even more in course now. But that is causing this kind of like weird sort of trinity of problems. So
Yeah.
spicy take, but innovate without a community, expensive and dangerous. Innovate with the community, or leave the community without innovation. It's potentially lovely if you live in a nice area, but it's going to be acidification, and it's going to be horrible if you're not in that area. So what we at Community always try to do is to bridge that gap between the two worlds, brilliantly obsessive finders and solution tinkerers, and the world of passionate good people, through a rhythm of chats, focused facilitation and action, and sort of like, get it done, let's get it done, let's get it out, let's get out of here. And then rewards and reviews, and meaningful reward, because continuous improvement is totally a thing. And, Napoleon was the one that kind of invented the idea of giving out medals and stuff. I'm not particularly into baubles and medals, but some people like baubles and medals and badges. I like cash. I like food. I like experiences. If you could put me in food and experiences, I'd work for you for that. I'd do that. I'd work for you for that. Because money is only there to buy me food and experiences. If you can give me the food and experiences, why do I need the money? I don't need the money. I've got community. So yeah, we use the same rhythm. That's basically what it is. People are vital though.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is there. Now, we were just asking about your tenure and we were just talking in depth about it. Now, if I would just like to ask more about community consulting, I just wanted to understand this. Like, I mean, do you have any success stories that you would like to share with respect to, the community consulting? I mean, through this podcast session.
Oh man, so many successes. Because again, when your metric for success is weighted towards people rather than pure ROI, and that kind of sort of like 3% growth thing, then I mean, again, I see success everywhere. I see green shoots and success everywhere. The world's going to hell in a handbasket, but I'm an incredibly optimistic person, and this is why. Because it doesn't matter what goes on; it's about what people experience and what people do. And I see really good things for people all over the place. But in terms of kind of like sort of like what's the word? Bankable success. Life without barriers, foundational moment. What a team! And we're still hacking stuff together today. We still hang around. Now we haven't worked together officially for like 15 years. And I was an unwanted state quality assurance manager at that point, you know. But at the peak, there was like 8 of us. And we had allies all over the organization and all over the state doing some amazing work, including what was probably one of the earliest 5-day design sprints back in 2016, with the frontline back office and customers. And those interstate colleagues, we were discovering, we were hacking, we were packing, we were checking what works along a core and very complex and very emotional customer journey in human services. Absolutely fantastic. With that under the belt, I went and won my first hackathon, the WA Health Hack, with a team of people I didn't know. Just walked in, used the kind of like the human-centered and strange space and said, hey, look, I think this might help us. We won the competition, and in the end, the judges said, you all should have done what this team did. They didn't just build something they thought people wanted. They came with a bunch of ideas and immediately ran out of this room, left you all here, and talked to real people on the street to see if they were even heading in the right direction to start with, before they committed code, before they did anything. Human-centered design, strength-based approach, because I can obviously go and talk to people on the street. I have no issue with that. Remember, I was standing on the street in Scotland doing it, so I can do it there, I can do it here in Perth. I'll tell you that for nothing. And then I just did basically a whole bunch of really cool things. I got to the Bridge Mass Challenge finals that year as well with an idea called Supportal, with a whole bunch of really cool people. They didn't want to fund us because I didn't want to sell it or do an IPO and give them like a 10x return. So yeah, the VC people that we met were not best pleased with me, but I didn't really do it for them. Wasn't doing it for them. And then I did one of my other favorite ones was a year 9 3-day long hackathon with the kids to basically do placemaking. And we had like, I don't know, there must have been a couple of hundred kids roaming the streets talking to members of the public. We'd staged some, like local shop owners and stuff, to be outside so they could have a conversation. But they were just talking to random people on the street, trying to understand what they love about the community, what they didn't love about the community, and how they might change that. We then brought them back in, and they went through all the various processes, yada, yada, yada. They did a big pitch presentation in front of all their peers and all the teachers and the community members at the end. Prizes were awarded, all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that happened is the winning team then went on to go and pitch to council, and their idea was selected and their idea was implemented, which was a not fully Ute kind of sort of like skate park, but kind of like an almost hacked together, nailed in the ground, but still safe one, next to the chess area, next to the library area, so that the chess people and the young kids and the old community and the older people in the community could all bump into each other. Not physically, not with the skateboards, because that would be bad, but to connect and to be in the same space and therefore potentially have a conversation that they wouldn't have had. Absolutely fabulous. For those people that are watching that want metrics, RAC, we saved $500,000 in 9 months and a backlog of other improvements that were going to add value, add delight, remove cost, and make the experience better for both customers and employees and stakeholders.
Right.
That's kind of that's the ROI one for you, but I don't really care about that because even in that situation, what I most cared about is people coming back to me and saying, I've had this idea for ages and no one listened, and now we're doing it. Or I had this idea and no one listened. Now they've listened, and I've realized it was actually a terrible idea and I shouldn't be holding on to it. But thank you for helping us to go and have that conversation and make those actions and discussions. Keeping us in the room made us make decisions that we would have kicked down the road otherwise because it would have been awkward. So yeah, lots of successes, but it's always about people and it's always about conversations turning into actions.
Exactly. I mean, conversation enhances the things, and it gives you new ideas, and finally it
Yeah.
leads to new stuff.
Yeah, totally. I've had some great conversations. Some of them I've involved the other person in.
Brilliant, brilliant. Now, I'm, pretty much interested to know this because, when we had our earlier conversations, you just gave me this, this hindsight about things. So I want to, just now, I want this to be unveiled with respect to this podcast session. So, I mean, just can you give me an overview of, community as a platform where they're connecting with different communities, turning their plans into dialogues, and again, they are again connecting with, their respective communities. So how does this process work? And, give me a more insight about it.
I certainly would love to, and I'm certainly not going to. Well, I'm going to give you a bit. I'm going to give you a bit, because technically speaking, what we're building, what my group of lovely, diverse and crazy people are doing is that we're building this out at the moment. So we're a bit still in stealth mode. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to capture that community DNA. And I mean that community with a K. Oops, that way. Community with a K, but also community. I heard a really good thing the other day that reinforcement learning is the critical AI evolutionary tool that is more powerful than people think. It's akin to when Einstein, pop culture reference coming. It's akin to when Einstein said the most powerful force in the universe that he's ever found is compound interest. Um, Not gravity.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Not the weak nuclear force or the strong nuclear force. Compound interest. Classic quote. Because it
Wow.
is 3% a year is exponential growth before you even realize. That's a logarithmic scale growth. That's not linear. That's logarithmic. That's where you get the hockey stick in the graph. Um, and you can only do that if you are doing that reinforcement learning. So that's what that is the fundamental paper version is continuous improvement. It is retrospective. That's the paper version of it. But AI is able to do that at an incredible speed, which is why I can go from not being able to play Go to being world champion in a few months and wiping the floor with anybody that steps up to try and do it. So what we're trying to do is try to combine those kind of sort of like ideas. So community and what we do, which is tool agnostic or whatever, but going through that process of human-centered and strength-based approach. Community wisdom, lived and living experience. Because if you've lived the experience and left, it's not the same as still living the experience. People that say, I pulled myself up by my bootstraps, and therefore everybody else can, did not pull themselves out of the same river that somebody else is in now because the world has moved on. It's not the same situation. So you can have lived experience. I love that. And you've still got to have people with living experience because these are the people that are going to be impacted the most and probably the ones that are going to profit the least. Whereas the living anyway, very good. I'll go into detail. But yes, so what community does is it tries to bring that DNA and the community together and then provide a way of building that community strength, building that community muscle, continuously improve and to learn and do retrospectives, but along a very familiar path. Chat, spark ideas about what you care about, focus and act, turn those campfire sparks into lightweight or complex living plans, and picking the tasks and nudging them forward, and always falling back on your community when progress is interrupted by, fun. You don't get much. How many holidays a year do you get in your company, and how many sick days? So they've sat down and worked out the calculus that you're allowed to have so many sick days and you're allowed to have so many. But if you overspend
Yep.
that, it's on you. Life is allowed to get into the way as long as it doesn't meet their statistical sort of like their level, in which case it becomes a pain in the
Yeah.
ass and your job's
Right.
on the line. Community is not that. If you can't do something, it's because of life. Well, there's a whole community of people behind you. Like, just because you can't mow the lawn today doesn't mean the lawn doesn't get mowed. Your dad does it, or your wife does it, or the son does it. He complains, but he does it because you're a community. So have the chat, have the focus, have the action, and then, as we say, review to find out what are the lessons, feed them forward, build a collective genius ready for the next time because we're going to be doing this again. Create libraries, but libraries of lessons and tips and tools and technologies of what's worked, so that we can collectively bring that together. So that when you're doing something, you're not taking every step by yourself. Those steps are being done by somebody else. So you're already 3 or 4 steps ahead. And then a key thing at the end, rewards. So whether that's skill swaps, kudos tokens, cold hard cash. Remember, I do like profit. If you go away from this thinking I don't like profit, he's anti-capitalist, you would be wrong. I like it, but I also respect the fact that there are other things that are valuable. Pay me in experiences, pay me in box of organic food, pay me in vans, like the shoes, not the vehicles, because that's all they ever wear mostly. Pay me in high fives. Whatever it is that I need at that time is what I would love to be paid in. Cash is easy, but it's not necessarily what I want. It's the things I can buy. So, chat, focus, app, rewards, review, and reward. I like to think of it as a bit of, or somebody else likes to think of it anyway, is what they said, is the Canva for community coordination. No matter what your community for good is coordinating for. I've already said too much. I'm not going to say any more. But if you are curious, we are about to launch some community clubs. One is very much focused on good people, so our clients that normally would be our clients. So good people that want to use something like a tool that's not Trello and it's not Miro and it's not Teams and it's not Facebook and it's not TikTok, where they're actually in control of their own conversation and not being curated and angered for profit. So you can have a conversation with the right people to get quickly aligned and compound these good acts. So you want to use something like this? If you want something like this to exist, give us a shout. If you want to help build something like this because you've got experiences of projects or human-centered design or anything, because it's all encompassing in that sort of sense, give us a call. Get in touch. Like and subscribe below or whatever the stuff is. Do you say that at the end of these things? I'm never quite
Sure.
sure.
I
I'm
think,
never quite sure.
Mike, you should do that. Once we conclude our podcast, you can definitely, pitch it out
Subscribe.
for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, look, to sort of like round this up a little bit, the core belief here is that any community needs to be built by the community that cares. Don't do it to me, don't do it for me, don't do it at me, do it with me or not at all. It's a classic sort of refrain. So I want people to go to community.ai, so KAMUNITY, community.ai. You can find out some more. You can drop an email. You can comment. Because, as I said before, we're at a really interesting time, and we've got some really interesting choices ahead of us. I think we have the right intent, and we might not have to choose between doing good and getting paid. I think that's a thing. So, don't know. Let's explore it. So again, yeah, leave your comments below, and if you would like to bring your messiest business, we'll make it community business, and we'll see what works for you, so that you're fit, not fatigued. Yeah.
Brilliant, Mike. Now, Mike, what gave you this idea of, bridging communities together? Like, when was that, that eureka moment for you that you wanted to do this?
So many to be honest. Just that repeat experiences of walking into a room with people I don't know to facilitate through a process that I've talked with people, and then coming out with amazing outcomes. But I guess one of the things that really drove it home to me is my 81-year-old mother. She wasn't 81 at the time, but she likes to go traveling because she loves to expose herself to other cultures and situations that you normally wouldn't put yourself in. A lot of people can't go to your resorts and your nice places. And if you've got families and stuff, I totally get that. I would do exactly the same. She's never really been like that. So she ended up in Harlem in New York. Well, yeah, absolutely. She did say, I think we saw a dead person. And so we're kind of like, great, excellent. My old mum is wandering through like criminal ghettos
Oh
and
my God.
stepping
Right.
over dead people. And I'm kind of like, you probably shouldn't do that. She's like, don't worry, we look really poor. No one's gonna rob us. But they were staying at a halfway house. So, like the concept of a halfway house. It's that idea. Okay, so a halfway house is that idea that, coming out of prison, when you've been institutionalized in prison, coming out and getting a job is really hard. Society has already put a cross against your name, possibly for very good reasons. But if we believe in restorative justice and the idea that when you come out of prison, you have served your time, you have done your bit, you have atoned to society. And I think that's an important thing because crime is very visceral, it's very emotional. And there are multiple ways of doing it. Like I won't go into a comparative analysis of different criminal justice systems. But you go to Denmark, it's massively different to the way it is here. And it's massively different to the way it is in America, which is incredibly punitive. 3 strikes and you're out for the rest of your life. Seriously? Who hasn't made 3 mistakes in their life? Because some of them could be tiny. But anyway, point being, there was this halfway house that they stayed at. Ground floor restaurant, open to the public. but also open to people that were in the halfway house. Next level up was administration. Next level up was some accommodation for the people that were transferring from prison into normal life. Next level up, there was a whole bunch of workshops and work areas that were multimodal that could be changed and adapted to what was needing to be done and facilitated because they had limited space. So they couldn't have a dedicated room for this and a dedicated room for that. They had to have it all in one place and they made it work because they were passionate about it and they had skills because some of them had learned skills in prison or they'd had skills beforehand, but they used those skills to support each other. The next levels were all accommodation for guests, for tourists, because they wanted to mix the community together. They didn't want it to be this standalone, isolated silo that is kind of like looked at and jeered at by the rest of the neighborhood because it's a bad place where bad people go. No, they created a community of people that were passionate and people that were like, I can't help in any direct way, but I can go and rent, I can go and choose to stay there rather than at the Hilton. Because I think I'd rather my money, the little profit that was going, because it was not much because they were cheap, but the little amount of money that was left over was going to help humans have a better experience of life after having been down some tracks that were not necessarily the best. And not always of their own making, sometimes, but not always of their own making. And that stuck with me that there was such a group of people that were dedicated to do that, to people that are kind of like the unloved, the unappreciated, and kind of sort of like that we put out with that. And to really sort of drive the metaphor home, I feel like most corporate places are institutions. Yeah.
Yep.
Like they literally talk about golden handcuffs, golden parachute, all of these kind of sort of stuff. I like constant surveillance. Like you're at home and you have to wiggle your mouse, otherwise your boss knows you haven't sat on your computer. Or you've gone away. God forbid you've gone to make a sandwich when they check the activity stats. I mean that's prison, right? Like
Absolutely. Yeah.
you're in the prison workshop at that point, especially if you're getting paid peanuts because apparently you're too young or you haven't got experience yet. But don't worry, this is a development opportunity for you. You'll get your reward in the next job, and then the next job, this is another development opportunity for you. You get a slight bump, but not what people previously were getting paid. Or I'm ranting again. But that is the thing. Community. I have a dream. The community is the halfway house for people that are transitioning from a job that they probably don't like as much as they could, to doing something that they like and does good. That's kind of it, really. And then it just reinforced every time I ever met anything, people trying to do anything. Yeah.
That's a pretty interesting premise, Mike. And I'm pretty sure, Mike, whatever initiative that you have taken with respect to the community, with respect to your company, I'm pretty sure that you're going to achieve, heights and miles with all these things, and that's a great. That's a word of what do I say, motivation and support that you would like to
Thank you very much.
get it from my end.
Well, look, I mean, we're playing an infinite game. So I don't know if you know much about game theory. I don't know much about game theory, but I know enough to make it sound like I know enough about game theory. But there are such things as contained games and infinite games. There are limited objectives and there are endless objectives. Now, if you're in an organization and you want that organization to continue forever, presumably, I want to build something that lasts, right? So I'm either playing a series of limited games with limited objectives, or I'm playing an infinite game that never ends with infinite objectives. You can choose. Again, we have choices. Short-term objectives tend to lead to short-term thinking. The medium is the method. The communication and the planning channel is what you do. The form follows the function. I mean, there's so many bloody cliches that kind of sort of reinforce the fact that if
Right.
you do something, then you're going to get
Yeah.
more of the same thing. So
Agreed. Yeah.
Eric Ries from the startup, he created the long-term stock exchange for
Hmm.
organizations that wanted an alternative choice to going on the normal stock exchange, which forced you into short-term, quarter by quarter stock buybacks. All these sorts of activities that boost the stock market, boost the stock. Everybody gets bonuses. Everybody's like, GDP is up, everybody. But your Mars bar has gone from 65 kilograms to 48 kilograms. And the
Hmm.
company's like, what? You noticed that? You noticed that? Sure, totally. But we're still selling at the same price. Did you notice that?
Hmm.
Incentivization. I think it's a choice. and I don't want to choose acidification. So I want to make this as an infinite game. So the community is something that grows and thrives and is more than just me. And it is more than just me. It's a whole bunch of wacky, crazy, beautiful, talented people that are giving their time because they're passionate to make something that they think is going to outlast them. To plant a bloody tree that,
Hmm.
yes, they're going to get the shade from, but so's everybody else for generations. That's the goal. A bit ambitious and maybe a bit egotistical, but having grown up and done the startup stuff, they basically talk about big, hairy, audacious goals. So go hard or go home. Aussie, Aussie, Aussie.
Completely. That's good to know, Mike. Now, Mike, we'll take a pretty lighter route. Like earlier, we were just talking about your tenure and all about the technicalities and all about how you have started in your journey, and then with respect to community consulting. Now we're going to take a lighter route in the form of a rapid fire round. So
Right.
it's going to be a very quick, about likes and interests and all of that. So the first question to you, Mike.
Go.
So, Mike, out of these sports, which is the one that you prefer the most? Is it rugby or is it football?
Oh, easy. Rugby. Rugby's a man's sport. Football's for ballerinas that fall over and then perform on the ground. They're like, I don't know. Yeah, yeah. Rugby. And bloody not rugby league, rugby union. No, no,
All right.
real
So
sport.
who's your favorite rugby player? Since you just have mentioned about the Scotland rugby team, if I'm not wrong. So who's your all-time favorite Scottish rugby player?
Oh man, I grew up in the days before it was professionalized. So Gregor Townsend was like in the modern game. Oh, I can never remember his name. Jeff something. He was the kicker back in Scotland in '96 when we won the Calcutta Cup, which was about the last time, and won the Six Nations, which was about the last time. Hastings, Gavin Hastings. They used to call him the Donkey. And one of my best friends at school, his dad was known as the Donkey for entirely different reasons, which I won't go into on this podcast. Family show, to misquote the Bugle. Yeah. Totally. But they're an amazing game. And also, what I love about it is it was always a community in Scotland. It was always a community thing. It was always like they would come off the farms and then they would go play rugby. Whereas the English, and I'm not bagging English, but I am Scottish, so I am bagging English. But I love the rule. I love English. Yeah, the English used to go to their hoity-toity fucking fancy elite schools, and then they'd go play rugby. Whole different thing. They were professional, and we were just sort of like amateurs that had fun. But we did really well. And I'm glad to say that we're doing really well again. We're not great, but Scotland's doing really, really well again, and challenging and beating the English, which is good.
Right. Now, I mean, you just told me about community. So probably, I believe the concept of community, or let's say the name for your company, community, comes from, I mean, all those experiences that you have had in Scotland. Like
Oh, the
community
world.
connects community.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's it. Community is the foundation of everything that we do as a species. Always has been, always will be. Whether it's a community of practice, a community of passion, a community of place, that doesn't matter. We've all got these myriad of communities, and I kind of sort of think it's time to use those communities for good
Yeah.
and for social change, because quite frankly, we kind of all benefit from that. I'm not like a Marxist or anything or communist or any of that kind of sort of stuff. I don't really believe in those sorts of labels. I kind of just sort of like, I would like to do cool stuff with cool people in cool parts of the world. Can I do that, please? What do I need to do then? Oh, I need community. Right, well, I'll build that then and see if anybody else wants to help.
Right. 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 That actually proves a point. Now, if I would just like to ask you this question, I mean, it's pretty international. So, what's your favorite Indian dish that you like to have the most?
I can't answer that because my missus is Pakistani.
Oh,
So
okay.
if I say India, I'm going to get in all sorts of problems. It's going to be like,
Oh,
yeah,
God.
contentious. You guys.
All right.
And again, as a British person, sorry, that was kind of our fault. We didn't really leave that situation the best it could possibly be, and we stole most of your stuff. And sorry, I'm doing that classic thing where as a British person, I apologise to my ancestors and
Yeah.
realise the impact that we've had on the world. But in terms of the food, any of it, all of it, butter chicken. Oh my God, she makes like these Afghani sort of inspired dishes. We're having a bit of a dinner party. It's not really a dinner party. I don't do dinner parties, but we're having some friends around, and she's making a whole plethora of like different cultural sort of foods you wouldn't normally get in any of the restaurants, or any sort of like popular names that anybody would understand, and certainly not names that I can pronounce because I'm dyslexic as all hell. So which is a jumble of consonants and mouth shapes that don't make sense. But I'll tell you what does make sense: her cooking. Oh, so good, so good.
Cricket, yeah, yeah. I mean, cricket is, one thing, Mike. India-Pakistan match is like almost like, I don't know, that craze just goes, even way beyond Australia versus England during the Ashes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. You guys are crazy. But then,
We
Glasgow, Celtic versus Rangers.
Rangers, yeah.
Yeah, those guys are mental. They used to throw darts. They used to throw darts at each other and coins at the referee, or set
Obvi.
fire to his house. Yeah, tribal sports, plus religion. Oh, yeah,
I
plus
mean,
alcohol.
that's pretty bizarre. That's totally bizarre. Yeah. So have you ever got a chance to, travel to your in-laws' place since you told your wife is Pakistani? So did you ever go get a chance to travel to Pakistan?
I have not. I have not yet, but she is definitely going to take me. India and Pakistan is one of the areas of the world that I am at this point most regretting not actually having visited. South America's on that list as well. I've been very fortunate in aspects of my life, and I'm also very Scottish and very cheap, so I can live off the smell of an old rag for a lot longer than possibly most people can. So I've done a reasonable bit of traveling, but yeah, India and Pakistan, get me there. I want it all. I want it all.
Definitely. You should visit Hyderabad. And in Hyderabad, I mean, the localites, we just love biryani. We
Yes.
just go crazy about biryani.
God, she does an amazing chicken biryani. Like I'm not even. Oh, God damn, it's so good. I could eat now.
Brilliant, brilliant. So if I ever visit, Edinburgh, like what is that restaurant that you would, suggest me, or you would say that, this is the thing that you should go for?
Well, first off, don't call it Edinburgh. You will get stabbed. No, you won't get
Oh,
stabbed. Sorry, it's Edinburgh. I
Edinburgh.
know.
Okay. Edinburgh.
Edinburgh. Welcome to the other side of pronunciation. Americans call it Edinburgh. It's hilarious. Wow, that's great. Gee, Edinburgh. You're like, shut up. Edinburgh. I don't know. I haven't lived in Edinburgh for nearly 20 years. I've been in Perth for 20 years this year, I think, or next year. Next year. Um, so many good places. Actually, freakishly enough, and it's no longer there, which is a real shame. They used to be down at Dean Bridge, which is just picturesque. Google that and then tell me that's in the center of a town, like a city, the capital city of Australia. Dean Bridge is just beautiful. There used to be a restaurant there called Lance's, and they had all the traditional like tandoori ovens and everything. And
Oh,
mate, those tandooris that would sorry, the naans that they used to cook in the tandoori ovens. So they were about the size of a small child. And then I came out here to Australia and I was like, "We're going to go to Fat Mary's or Chutney Mary's or Two Fat Indians or whatever it is," and you get these like little kidney-sized things. And I'm like, "How is that?" And they're like, "Oh, we can't get the proper ovens or something." I seem to remember somebody saying, I don't know what their excuse was, but yes, Lancers in Edinburgh or any fish and chip shop because you can get deep fried haggis, deep fried Mars bars, deep fried
mhm.
pizzas. And if you're
All right.
drunk and staggering home, all of those are possibly the best things you can put in your mouth. Oh my God, they're
Okay.
so good. Oh my
All
God.
right.
Deep fried pizza.
Deep fried pizza. All right. If I would just like to, ask you this, like, which type of sitcoms do you prefer? Is it English sitcoms or Scottish sitcoms?
I'm gonna betray my race and say British. See, the wonderful thing about being from the UK is that every now and again you can say I can say I'm Scottish, and then every now and again I can say I'm British, and then every now and again I can say I'm from the United Kingdom, which also kind of includes a little bit of Ireland too, and the Welsh, obviously, not forget the Welsh. So I will claim whatever, but I think there's something uniquely self-deprecating, um, and just honestly cutting about like UK comedy that I think the Americans try to replicate when they do things like copying The Office, and things like that, or Shameless, to sort of do another one. They just don't cut. They just don't work in American sitcom. But having said that, I grew up watching, and this is obviously embarrassing to say, I grew up watching The Golden Girls. And
Mhm.
do you ever remember Cheers with Ted Danson, a very young Ted Danson? The opening song of that is stuck in my head. I could literally, I'm not going to, so don't worry, but I could literally sing the whole opening song to the big sitcom Cheers. It was brilliant. It was so influential on me. And God damn it, I was listening to my Spotify account the other day and noticed that. And if I go back and I look at my music that I've collected or the programs that I've watched, this is what I mean about you are the media you consume. You are what you eat, you are who you meet, and you are the media you consume. Not entirely, and it's simplified for a comical effect and for brevity. But what are the words to Cheers? We all want to go where somebody knows your name, where you feel welcome. That's what that song is about. The world is a harsh place, and you want to go somewhere where everybody knows your name, where you can have a family. It's not necessarily your birth family or your place family or whatever, but it's a family and they support each other. And then one wonderful thing about Scottish culture that I love, and it's based on a sort of like a stand-up, big hairy ginger guy. That's not going to narrow down much for Scottish comedians, but I can't place his name in the room, and I'll get back to it. But he tells the story of crossing the park. He's got a baby. He gets interrupted. There's a nativity. There's a nativity play going on. And he's trying to get through, and they're like, "You can't be here, son. Get away." And he's like, "Are you telling me there's no room at your inn for me to be here?" And then he's like, "Oh, this is a funny joke." And then he says, he's really angry. He gets to the other side of the park, and there's a really big guy. There's a real big one of his mates. And he says, "I haven't seen this guy for 18 months. I know that because that's when he got put inside. So he's out of prison now. And I'm telling him this story about I'm trying to cross the park, and they're forcing me to go the long way around because they're doing this thing, and there's no room for me to get through." And what does the guy say? "No worries, pal. I'll hold the baby." And it's that sort of slightly unhinged, beautiful, community-oriented Scottishness that I'm sure is in other cultures, which is kind of like, my friend has expressed an issue. We've talked about something that's problematic, and we're going to bloody well do something about it. And if that means I have to hold the baby, I will hold the baby. So that you can
Okay.
go and punch Mary in the face, which I believe was the rest of the joke. Not that I condone violence, but yeah, that's what community life is for me. It's finding people that you can play with, that you can make forts with, that you can turn the floor into lava, or you can turn the world into a platform that connects people that want to do good. Play with life, have fun, but try and do it with positive intent and positive taste, because it's an infinite
Agreed.
game. It's an
Yeah.
infinite game.
Yep.
Plant a few trees. Let's see who shelters. Let's see if they do something useful. But experiment and play. And if you've got a challenge, um, have a chat. Come bring it to us. Let's make your messy business community business. That's the plan.
Agreed. That's true. Now the final question to you, Mike. Like, if you have to choose between the Marvel franchise and the DC franchise, which one would you choose?
Oh, God. DC are awful. They're awful. They're just rubbish. They just keep rebooting it and messing it up. And not, they are not able to do world building. That's what they're not able to do. They're not able to connect the ecosystem of the IP that they have. I've got to make this about bloody community again. Yeah, I prefer Marvel. I prefer Marvel. Not all the stories are good, but the web is dense. And I do
It's
occasionally
huge.
have to admit to watching the 45-minute 150 Easter eggs that you missed in the latest Marvel movie. They're tailing off a bit, but they've been doing it for 15, 20 years now, so it's not a surprise. It's hard to keep anything that fresh. But Marvel all the way.
Hail the Marvel side.
Oh yeah. What about you? Are you Marvel or are you
I'm a Marvel
DC?
fan. I'm a Marvel
Oh, good
fan.
man. God, I should have checked that first. Nothing worse than upsetting somebody.
I'm a Marvel fan. I'm a fan of Captain America, which many people will be like, why are you a fan of Captain America?
Yes. Yeah, yeah. Love that idea. I mean, that again is the idea that a skinny, tiny, weak kid wanted to do his bit, and the system said no. But some really good-hearted, clever scientist with a whole bunch of people that cared did something about that. And then that same system used that for PR, not impact. And then he was eventually, with a bunch of other really good people, said, balls to this. I'm going to go and do what I can to make it good. And if it leads to the Sokovia Accords or something, I'm trying to do my Marvel history here. If it leads to the Sokovia Awards and we fall out and we have whatever, that's fine. That's communities. Families fall out, but they always get back together in the end, which I think is the most important lesson. Hard conversations are called hard conversations because they are. But hard conversations with people you love, and people you respect, and people you share passion with, become growth moments. God, I sound like a therapist. But yes, personal growth is better than not having the conversation at the end of the day. So find your people, find your impact, find your good, come and talk to us, and we'll help you if you need it. Otherwise, good luck. And I hope to see you out there.
Absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, thank you so much, Mike, for taking time
Oh,
and being part of my podcast initiative. And I know I mean, our collaboration plan goes way back. I mean, 1 month back, and we were just
yeah, yeah,
planning
yeah.
out and finalizing things, and finally it has materialized now, and it was an amazing journey all the way.
It was
And yes,
fabulous.
yeah. So, Mike, I really love the way you were just, putting across the initiative about community consulting, then about your journey, about how you
Mm.
transitioned all the way from the textile side to the technical side, which was
It was
pretty
the best.
interesting.
It was the best. It was the best. Stupid unknown move ever. Like, who knew that was going to be such an influence? And yeah, it was. Didn't expect it. Fabulous outcome.
That was a fabulous outcome for sure. And then finally, you were just talking about, the way you're connecting communities, and then and the about the things like how workshops are important and how the transformations can be led. That's fabulous.
Totally. I always reflect because I'm a lover of history and all that kind of sort of stuff. And as human beings, we have spent more time around campfires than office tables. We've spent
Yeah.
way more time sharing purposeful, meaningful, cautionary tales and tales of aspiration than we have trying to come up with competency frameworks that give you 20 things that you have to improve about yourself in order to be a better employee or pro or whatever language you want to use.
Yeah.
So why have we ditched that? Let's go back to campsites. Let's go back to campfires. Let's go back to stories. Let's go back to getting things done with good people.
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah.
That actually puts the point across. So, listeners, on this note, this is your host Akhil Navluri signing off. We would be back with another podcast episode with another industry leader very soon. So, on this note, take care, keep listening, stay tuned, au revoir, and goodbye. And thank you so much, Mike, once again.